Hey, if you've heard me talk about how I hate the company Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks and TurboTax, I wanted to share with you an article sharing the research about why this is such an unethical company. This is an article by Justin Elliott and Paul Keel. This is part 2 of 3. I am reading you over the course of 3 episodes of the Sunlight podcast, an amazing report done by ProPublica called Inside TurboTax's 20-Year Fight to Stop Americans from Filing Their Taxes for Free. This episode is part 2 of 3. If you haven't heard the first episode, you might want to go back in your feed and listen to the last one first. The first year of Free File was 2003, and for Intuit, things went well. On paper, the Free File Alliance was a collection of 17 companies, all of them vying to serve the American taxpayer. But in reality, it was a group made up of 2 giants and a bunch of gnats. Intuit's only significant competitor was H&R Block, and even it was a distant second. The rest of the alliance consisted mostly of tiny companies with names like free1040taxreturns.com. As a result, Intuit could tailor its free file offer just the way it wanted. But the next year, Intuit began to lose control of its creation. A scrappy competitor, TaxAct, decided to use Free File to stand out. The company decided it would try to pick up as many new customers as possible and then charge them for ancillary services. Instead of following Intuit's lead and constraining its offer to a subset of low-income taxpayers, TaxAct went the opposite direction. Why not go for an offer that's much simpler to understand, is how Lance Dunn, the president of the maker of TaxAct, described the strategy in a later court hearing. It began advertising a pitch for, quote, free federal online tax preparation and e-filing for all taxpayers. No restrictions, everyone qualifies, unquote. TurboTax's offer on the Free File page, meanwhile, was more difficult to parse. Quote, if you are eligible for EIC, are age 22 or younger, age 62 or older, or active military with a W-2, unquote. EICs stood for the Earned Income Tax Credit. TaxAct's ploy was a smashing success. The company's volume exploded. Alarmed, Intuit tried to get the other companies not to offer their products for free to too many potential customers, according to Dunn. Such a request could be collusion, a violation of antitrust law, Dunn said. Quote, Intuit asked the Free File Alliance members that we should restrict offers, which I believe is probably not legal for that group to restrain trade, unquote, he said. ProPublica asked Intuit about Dunn's accusation, but the company did not respond. Dunn, who declined to speak with ProPublica, made these remarks during sworn testimony in 2011. The hearing was part of an antitrust case by the Justice Department against H&R Block after it tried to buy TaxAct. The U.S. argued that by eliminating a competitor, the merger would create a duopoly of Intuit and H&R Block. Although the Justice Department ultimately blocked that takeover, the market has grown even more consolidated in recent years. In 2019, according to a ProPublica analysis of IRS data, the 2 giants accounted for 81% of all individual returns filed using tax prep software. On the defensive, Intuit and H&R Block match TaxAct, quote, no restrictions offer on Free File. Americans rushed to file for free, and in 2005, 5 million people filed their taxes through the program. Free File had become the most popular way to file taxes online. Intuit viewed the popularity of Free File as a serious threat and took its case to Congress. That year, Brad Smith, then a senior vice president at the company and head of TurboTax, told a House committee that, quote, the current Free File Alliance program has drifted very far from its original public service purpose and objective, unquote, as he put it. The program wasn't supposed to be for everyone, he said. It was for the, quote, disadvantaged, underprivileged, and underserved taxpayer populations, unquote. Intuit's argument quickly gained traction at the IRS. Already in March 2005, the IRS had written to the Justice Department for legal advice on modifying the Free File program. The agency wanted to know, would it run afoul of antitrust laws if the IRS barred companies in the Free File Alliance from offering a free product to everyone? The Justice Department responded in a May 2005 letter. Clearly, wrote Renata Hesse, an antitrust section chief at the department. Quote, any agreement among alliance members to restrict such free service is likely a form of price fixing, unquote, and thus illegal. But there was still a way for Intuit to get what it wanted. She wrote that if the IRS itself were to impose such a restriction, it would be legal. The IRS swooped in to beat back Intuit's competition, doing for Intuit what the company could not do it on its own. Despite just 5 million Americans using a program that was purportedly available to 80 million, the IRS agreed that Free File needed to be reined in. The agency made its reasoning clear in a previously unreported letter sent to the Free File Alliance the following year. Bert Dumars, then head of electronic filing at the IRS, wrote that there had been a huge jump in people using Free File in 2005, but no corresponding boom in people paying for tax prep. Quote, if this trend continued, the IRS was concerned that it could cause many vendors to go out of business, unquote. He wrote, stock market analysts, he pointed out, had said Free File, quote, represented a threat to future revenues and profits of the publicly traded company participants, unquote. The IRS decided to remove this threat. The new agreement struck between the IRS and the Alliance in 2005 gave Intuit what it had sought. Companies were now expressly barred from offering free tax prep to everyone through the program. Instead, only taxpayers under an income cap, then $50,000 a year, would be eligible. On paper, the program's eligibility had actually increased to 70% of taxpayers, or about 93 million households, up from the previous 78 million. But in practice, because broad, easy to understand offers were now barred, it was clear the program's use would decline. Intuit had again bent the power of the federal government in its favor. After 2005, the Free File program was never again as popular, eventually falling to about half that year's level. With a threat of government encroachment on ICE and high-speed internet access proliferating in the mid-2000s, Intuit looked forward to steady growth and big profits. The upside of the online software business was huge, with the cost of producing each additional unit approaching zero. And TurboTax was hardly a niche product. Intuit executives still excitedly talk about the TAM, total available market, of TurboTax as every single filer in the country, now over 150 million households. But TaxAct's Free File gambit had forever transformed the industry. Advertising, quote, free was a great lure, so TaxAct took the battle to a different venue. Barred from making a free offer to everyone through Free File on the IRS's website, TaxAct decided to make the offer on its own website in 2006. Intuit recognized a credible challenge from the upstart and countered the next year, launching TurboTax Free Edition on its website. Confusingly, there were now two distinct options: the government-sponsored Free File and the commercial Free Editions. For customers who managed to qualify, the new commercial options offered by these companies were similar to what they could get on the IRS's Free File website. The underlying software was the same, only the federal return was free, and the companies expected to make money on each customer through charging for a state tax return or other services. But for the companies, there was a clear benefit to winning customers directly rather than through the IRS program. The companies had complete control over how they handled customers from start to finish. Intuit poured ad dollars into its free edition. Not only did the new product effectively meet TaxAct's challenge, it quickly became the major driver of TurboTax's customer growth. That growth posed a challenge: how to, as internal company documents put it, quote, monetize free, unquote. Over successive tax seasons, Intuit unleashed teams of designers, engineers, marketers, and data scientists on that problem, working at its headquarters in Mountain View and TurboTax's main office in San Diego. Part of the solution was to pitch users side products like loans or, quote, audit defense. But it also meant misleading customers. Frequently, free didn't mean free at all. Many who started in TurboTax Free Edition found if found that if their return required certain commonplace tax forms, they would have to upgrade to a paid edition in order to file. The company came to a key insight. Americans' anxiety around tax filing is so powerful that it usually trumps any frustration with the TurboTax product, according to 3 former Intuit staffers. So even if customers click on quote free and are ultimately asked to pay, they will usually do it rather than start the entire process anew. Intuit capitalized on this tendency by making sure the paywall popped up only when the taxpayer was deep into the filing process. Quote, there's a lot of desperation. People will agree, will click, will do anything to file, unquote, said a former longtime software developer. Every fall before tax season, the company puts every aspect of the TurboTax homepage and filing process through rigorous user testing. Design decisions down to color, word choice, and other features are picked to maximize how many customers pay, regardless if they are eligible for the free product. Quote, dark patterns are something that are spoken of with pride and encouraged in design all hands meetings, unquote, said one former designer. In the design world, quote, dark patterns, unquote, are tactics to get users to do something they don't necessarily mean to do. ProPublica previously documented dark patterns encountered by people trying to file their taxes for free. On TurboTax's homepage, for example, the company carefully chooses how it describes the different editions. Prominently featured next to Deluxe Edition, which costs around $100, is the phrase, quote, maximize your deductions, unquote. If users initially click on the deluxe software, they are never offered the choice to go to the free edition, even if the no-cost option would produce the same return. Quote, maximize your deductions was legendary at Intuit for its effectiveness in steering customers eligible for free filing to buy the paid product, according to a former marketing staffer. Another celebrated feature, former staffers said, were the animations that appear as TurboTax users prepare their returns. One shows icons representing different tax deductions scrolling by, while another at the end of the process shows paper tax forms being scanned line by line and the phrase, quote, let's comb through your returns, unquote. What users are not told is that these cartoons reflect no actual processing or calculations. Rather, Intuit's designers deliberately added these delays to both reinforce and ease users' quote, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, unquote. The animations emphasize that taxes are complicated, but also reassure users that the technological wizardry of TurboTax will protect them from mistakes. In a statement, the Intuit spokesman said, quote, the process of completing a tax return often has at least some level of stress and anxiety associated with it. To offset these feelings, we use a variety of design elements, content, animation, movement, etc., to ensure our customers' peace of mind, unquote. The 2007 launch of Free Edition started a period of rapid growth for TurboTax. Within 2 years, use of its web products had almost doubled, and over the past decade, its website has grown each year by an average of 2 million more customers. The company reported this year that TurboTax Online had handled 32 million returns. In a statement, it said around a third of that number used Free Edition. The government's free file program, meanwhile, has mostly faded into the background, drowned out by Intuit's and other companies' quote, free offers. The IRS did try advertising campaigns, spending around $2 million some years to spread the word, but compared with the reach of Intuit, this was a pittance. The company reported that this year it spent $800 million on advertising. With its budget slashed by Congress, the IRS has spent no money at all to advertise the program in recent years. This has been the second in a 3-part series where I am reading you an investigative report by the authors Justin Elliott and Paul Keel for ProPublica. I'm reading it with their permission. And next week, I'll be sharing the third and final installment of this research with you. I hope you enjoy and share it with your friends if you found it valuable. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm so grateful for that. This video is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.